Let's just talk about Bengals pick at number 28 in round 2. Usually we go with age before beauty. In this case, we'll go age and beauty and go with Lap. Lap, what's your take on Mr. Murphy and the pick that the Bengals made yesterday?
Well, I think the Cincinnati Bengals were in a position as an organization where they could let the draft come to them. They didn't have to reach. They didn't have to do anything that they might regret. In fact, in preparation for the draft, talking to people around the league that I talked to, they said this Bengals roster, the 53-man roster, if it's not number 1, it's number 2 and number 3 in terms of completeness and depth. I mean, they've got everything. They have no holes really in that roster. So, that's a good position to be in going into the draft. You can just let it fall. And what they did is they waited. And Myles Murphy, they had rated on their board as the last first-round pick, true first-round pick, because there's usually maybe 20 out of 32 guys are true first-round picks. It was less than that this year in the Bengals' estimation. He was the last guy. So I asked him in the presser, I said, at what point in the first round did you guys think and say, Murphy's the guy, I'm coveting Murphy? And they said about 8 picks before. So a lot of people had him at 20, 21. A guy here or there had him at 16. So to get him at 28, there's good value there. And the fact is, he's going to help him. I mean, this guy's 6'5", 270-plus pounds, runs in the 4.5s. He's got short space quickness and agility as well as long speed. He can play a lot of positions, can do a lot of things. He can even cover in the flat. He's that athletic. He's got some bend to him. He's really a good football player. He hasn't hit his peak yet. He still has upside. He's only 21 years old. And it's not like he didn't do anything at Clemson, which is a real good program. I want to make sure that I get these right. One of only 2 Power 5 players to record at least 35 tackles for loss and at least 6 forced fumbles across the 3 seasons that he played there. Only 2 guys. He was the only player in the country to produce at least 10 tackles for loss and at least 1 forced fumble in each of those 3 seasons. So he wasn't a one-hit wonder. He did it all 3 years, and he's got this one move where his arms are so long. He's got length, he's got strength, he's got speed. He does the one arm, bar inside the power rush, and he's going to have to come up with a couple of counter moves off of that. But he's very stout. And when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, for example, now that they've re-signed Lamar Jackson, the Bengals play that with 5 defensive linemen. They play that offensive set with Lamar Jackson with 5 down linemen. You need bodies. And in this National Football League, where you got quarterbacks that are making $250 million in their next contracts, $50 million a year, you need edge people to pressure them. You need cornerbacks to cover. The edge people to get them off their spot, hasten their reads, all that good stuff. So I mean, they basically added to a strength. They feel like they've got a pretty good defensive line. The 4 guys that start from that defensive line are one of the more highly paid in the National Football League.
Yeah.
But it's still competitive. You still have young guys that are vying for snaps. And this football team, everybody that they're going to draft is going to have a role, but not a starting role. They don't need it to be a starting role. But he'll come in and he'll give them 15 to 18 snaps as a rotational guy and get familiar with Lou Anarumo. Is going to use him as a chess piece, do a lot of different things with him, and he'll understand the defense and be able to fill a bigger role. A lot of these guys they're drafted for 2024 and 2025 as those roles expand, as they get more familiar with what's going on schematically and what the coach's expectations are.
Chess pieces are good. Malik, we were talking earlier on what the reaction is, and you said there's been an awful lot of fan base going, oh, we needed Michael Mayer. Let's get that tight end. What's your reaction to Murph's pick?
I think that this was a home run pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. I understand Michael Mayer was the guy that everybody fell in love with, everybody's favorite draft darling. He said he wanted to come to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have a need at tight end. It was easy to see the Bengals selecting Michael Mayer, and it made sense for a lot of reasons. But Myles Murphy also made sense for a lot of reasons as well. Now, when Trey Hendrickson was off the field, the Cincinnati Bengals were one of the worst at rushing the passer, right? They needed juice from the pass rushing department. That's what Myles Murphy gives the Cincinnati Bengals. Me personally, growing up watching the Cincinnati Bengals, I remember when they had the Fisher Price pack. I remember when they had Michael Johnson and Carlos Dunlap and those Robert Geathers, those edge rushers, right? And people forget about that. People forget, we say, edge rushers, you can't have enough of them in the National Football League. And I think it made sense for Myles Murphy to be the pick there. Now, I know people are down on him. They're like, he didn't have a great year last year. I want to remind everybody, Brett Venables left Clemson. Brett Venables went and became the head coach at Oklahoma, right? And everybody on that defense took a dip down, so to speak. I definitely think that if anybody can unlock the potential, the untapped potential of Myles Murphy, it's 100% going to be the Bengals defensive line coach, who people don't give enough credit to, Marion Hobby. This guy is him. He is great. He's a great coach. He's able to, unlock all the potential. I think that he's still working with Joseph Asai. He's helped Sam Hubbard's game reach a new level. Even Trey Hendrickson had a career year when he came to Cincinnati under Marion Hobby, and I expect Myles Murphy to do the exact same. I love this pick. I think it makes sense for a lot of reasons, but I got news for the Bengals fans out there. Michael Mayer's still on the board, so we'll see what happens. That is why I'm excited about day 2 of the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, Lap, we talked last week, and you said, just as you have explained, they can go anywhere they want. They can go anywhere they want. This was what they wanted to do. You've got to attack the passer. I'll move this over to Joe and say, Joe, your feeling is good that they went defensive? I mean, it's been a while. I think it was Justin Smith back in my day that they went first round on defense.
Can I count David Pollock? I think he would have been an edge rusher, as the league transitions into that. But still, that's only a couple year difference, right? Yeah, I'm a little more lukewarm on the pick. And I'll say this because I don't think the first round fell in a great way. I think outside we liked Michael Mayer, or maybe some were saying Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. Clearly, the Bengals weren't high enough on either guy. They like Myles Murphy, and I'm with the idea of defensive line for sure.
Yeah.
As you said, Dave, it's a high-paid unit right now. I think coming into the offseason is the second most cap hit around the league at defensive line for the Bengals. And so if you're going to add talent, and I think they need a talent, an influx there to help the pass rush. There were too many games last year where it died down or they got wore down. Trey Hendrickson playing too many snaps. Sam Hubbard playing too many snaps. BJ Hill, 900 snaps, right? So you want to cut those down. The Bengals have made 2 long runs the last 2 years. These guys are accumulating a lot of snaps lately. So you can't really go out and add too many big-name free agents when you're already paying so much. What they have to do, they had to spend a draft pick to get the influx of cheap talent there. Now, my concerns with Murphy are his best years were when he was a freshman at Clemson. He's a 5-star recruit out of high school. He's got all the talent. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism, right? When a guy comes in and splashes right away, you want to see the next step in development at some point. And if anything, I thought when the coaching staff changed for him, he took maybe a step back, especially as a pass rusher. I still think he's a very good run defender all 3 years. In fact, that's probably why they liked him more than some other guys, because the Bengals value that. That gets him on the field right away. But as a pass rusher, I'm with Dave. He's got the long arm, and that's it. He's got to figure out a counter move. He needs a pass rush plan. He needs to figure out how to handle guys when they hit him early or hit him differently, and he doesn't get to those guys' chests and control the rush. So he's got a ways to go there. Still, the way the board went, I don't think there were a lot of options. So I'm okay with the Murphy pick. I just am a little more tempered on his upside. I think it's going to take him 2 years or so before you really see an impact.
All right, fair enough. Evan? As you sit over there, are you lukewarm or are you in love?
I'm kind of on the same spot where Joe is, where this makes sense from a process standpoint, right? When you look at the data and you say, where do you get these premium positions at? Corner, tackle, defensive end. Where do you find these guys who have this prospect profile of both the size and the athleticism that you're looking for? This is where you get them, the first round or two, right? So the process makes sense. Getting cheaper on the defensive line is something the Bengals absolutely need to do. I think they've got about $51 million this year dedicated in cap space to those defensive linemen, the 4 starters on there. That's definitely going to help you in the future as you transition from spending the money on defense and being cheap on offense to spending the money on defense and spending the money on the offense and being cheaper on the defense. Now, talking a little bit more about Myles Murphy specifically, you guys have touched on it. He's still young, only 21 years old. There's a lot to work with. And with the flaws you do have in his game, obviously this guy's not 23, not 24, so he's not quite the finished product you might expect. he's got your prototypical size length build that you're looking for an edge. He's got violent hands. His first step get off for his size is really impressive. 4.53 speed and a 1.59 10-yard split that really demonstrates that burst and that explosiveness in the short area. You guys touched on it where he's kind of got the long arm and the power rush, but he definitely needs to develop a little bit more of a repertoire there, a little bit more of a counter as well. But he does have a high motor and a physical tackler, and he is a weight room warrior, 405-pound max bench press, and that strength and power translates to the field to where when everything comes together, you see him knocking tackles back and big guys, and he can really hold his own. You talked about the weaknesses a little bit, where the pass rush repertoire is not quite there. The production didn't quite match what you'd want out of the athleticism profile. And that is the reason that a guy with this size, with this athleticism, falls to the back end of the first round, right? So I do feel like the value plus the impending future need with Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson both approaching 30 within the next 2 years and also having more expensive cap hits, it's good for the Bengals to get out ahead, address a need for now, while also ensuring that they have insurance for the future. Just talking a little bit more about why it was so important that the Bengals end up with more pass rush juice. When you look at pass rushing productivity, which basically measures your efficiency on a per snap basis as a pass rusher with a little bit more weighting towards sacks, right? Because that's the goal, and that's a little bit more valuable than pressures alone. Trey Hendrickson ranks 6th among defensive linemen. Then jump down next is Sam Hubbard at 40, DJ Reader at 67, and BJ Hill 101. So you're talking about you really need someone who can offer more juice, who can be more productive on a per snap basis. I think, like Joe said, it's going to take maybe a year or two before you see that refinement, before you see a little bit more of the pad level correction, a little bit more of getting low and sinking well and getting those hands on those offensive linemen quickly so you can use that power, use those vice grips that you have for hands to his advantage. I really think that this is a good move for now and for the future, where value and a very talented player who falls to you kind of mesh well and coalesce.
All right, Evan. Well,
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.